The guest lecture by the great Srividya Upasaka from Chennai, Giridharanji. He is going to talk about the Darshana aspect of Srividya, Srividya as Atma Vidya.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vandeham Amritanandam Shantam Sulabharupinam Hayetuka Kripashandam Sishya Buddhi Nivasinam. Taking the blessings of my Guru and also offering my pranams to everyone. I appear to be an outsider here among the scholars and researchers. Nevertheless, Sir has kindly invited me to say a few words. I will go on the same pattern as what my teacher would normally do. Yeah. Is it audible now? Yeah. Okay. Srividya as a Darshana. That is the title. So I will explain each word, and I think that will cover the most of the things. Srividya as a Darshana. I don't have to give full background about what is Srividya, but for the context I am taking, I will define what is Srividya. And as are simple words, but I may have to emphasize a bit on what is as, what I mean as, and also has a significance. And the Darshana, we will come to that later. So when I say Srividya is a Tantra, the trigger for this topic is in this kind of academic discussions, not a Upasana Chintanam. For this kind of discussion, it is very difficult to talk about Srividya or Tantra without touching author Avalon's book. And there is in Shakti and Shakta, that book, there is a clear statement. It says Srividya is not a Darshana. Okay. I am misquoting him purposefully. I am not trying to dispute what he says. Obviously, I cannot. But what the context is, he is saying Srividya is much more than a Darshana. So Srividya is a holistic system. We also had a question yesterday, is there an equivalent word for system in our philosophy? I just go by the academics. What I mean as a holistic system is, it caters to four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, like a Vedika system. So then is it parallelly running, is it contrary and all, is it out of context now? But when you look at Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, Moksha is also one of the Purusharthas. Let's keep it aside. I will skip as those two words now and go to Darshana. Darshana is Mokshopaya. That is the sadhana that leads you to moksha. Okay, so now Srividya, according to my definition, is Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. It caters to that. So it is a Mokshopaya also. Then what is there to establish? Okay, and that is, see, when you look at Srividya as a totality, it is much more than the Mokshopaya. Even though we call it as a, many people have called it as a sadhana shastra, it is much more than that. It is more like a way of life, and it is a, Srividya is a corpus of text which defines the, not only the metaphysics, it is physiological, psychological, and also the philosophical aspect of it. So it is much more than that. So that is where when I say as a Darshana, I will come there, as a Darshana, even though Srividya has a overall, I would say, context or scope, I am trying to limit to this as only a Darshana Shastra. Okay. When we say that, in Astika Darshana, in our Sampradaya, we have 6 Astika Darshanas and 6 Nastika Darshanas. Where is Srividya counted? It is not in any of the Astika Darshana, and it is not even Nastika Darshana. Then where is the concept of Srividya being a Darshana? That question should be addressed at some point. I will just raise the question. I will explain what I have in mind, see if you get the answer. So now coming back to this Srividya as a darshana, I'll talk about the darshana aspect. It is mokshopaya. So in Mimamsa, what you say a sadhana, it's a moksha sadhana. Sadhana is that which leads to, it is a tool or a method that takes you to a certain result. Okay? Yagena bhavayet, yagena swargam bhavayet. So that is yaga is the karanam, the swarga is the bhavyam, and so yaga is the karanam, swarga is the bhavyam. Then there is one iti kartavyata, the methods, modus operandi. That is the iti kartavyata. Now Srividya Atma Vidyaya, Sir said Atma Vidya, Srividya moksham bhavayet, attain liberation. Now where is this iti kartavyata? How do I do that? So that aspect is what we are going to be talking about now. When I say Srividya as a darshana, that is what it is. And when I look into that, that is, it is going to be a darshana, it is a moksha upaya, then if we focus on the iti kartavyata aspect of the moksha, then Srividya becomes a darshana. And when I say a darshana, it is one of the many darshanas. And within Srividya also, as we have been seeing for the last 2 days, there are several acharas, and what is relevant in one, what is important in one, may not have the same importance or relevance in the another achara, and that is fine. But when we look into Srividya as it is, since I touched the Mimamsa, I want to talk about the karta aspect. Any of this sadhana has no meaning without a karta. So for whom it is? Who is the adhikari? Who is the adhikari for this sadhana? Currently, what we see is, particularly in South, from where I come from, as I not too academically oriented, more practice and mingling with people, learn from gurus, and my observation is this: there are two types of sadhakas. One who totally identify themselves as tantrics. That is, they might have been born into any kulachara, kula dharma, kula devata, kula krama, anything, but having been blessed by a guru, they identify themselves as that guru parampara, as part of the guru parampara. So vamsho dividaha vidyaya janmanava. So janmana, whatever is their vamsha, they keep it aside. They may even ignore it, but with the strength given by the guru, they strictly follow the guru parampara, that vamsha. Is it right or wrong? Can we ignore the sampradaya? Is a debatable point. Because those who do that, they have the strength of guru's word to ignore what they have done or what their ancestors have done, and whatever the negative consequences, if any, they know that for sure that Guru's grace will, or Divine Mother's grace will take them over that problem. Then there is another, the contrary argument is, today if you ignore this sampradaya, what is the guarantee tomorrow you ignore the other sampradaya also? Paradharmo bhayavaha. So there are who says that you cannot leave the kulachara or your whichever parampara you came from. There is validity in both arguments, but both types of aspirants follow Srividya. So the first type I told is pure tantric who left whatever they had and take over Srividya, this tantra sadhana, as the only sadhana. Interestingly, even those who identify themselves as pure tantrics, they do not take recourse to the moksha aspect. For them, Srividya is way of life. This phrase way of life is very misused, diluted and mutilated. Most of the people who use it, I don't even know whether they really mean it, but here I see that when the tantrics, they may not even be having an ultimate aim of attaining the divine. They follow the tantra practices to attain the worldly ends, and I am seeing that. So is it wrong? That is the personal choice. It's not here to comment on it. So normally when you want this, when you want something, you do Ganapati Homam, Navagraha Homam, or you go to Kula Devata temple, they do the Tantra Achara. So that is one way of doing it. And there are mumukshus in that also. So that is one type of aspirant. For them, Srividya is a sadhana for mukti. Then there is the second set who have everything in their kulachara, Vaidika. I'll take example of Smartha Sampradaya. They do everything according to this. Occasionally they may do a Nitya Puja or a Chandi Ajanam or something, but predominantly they follow the Kula Devata, Kula Sampradayam only. But purely for moksha, upaya, they take this mantra sadhana and others what the Guru has outlined. That is the second type of aspirants who have taken this sadhana. So when I say Srividya as a darshana, it should be applicable to both. Now there is one interesting question. Can someone do this mix and match, this hybrid approach, is it valid? According to Vedic Sampradaya, it is valid. Say I belong to Apastamba Sutra. Not everything is given in Apastamba Sutra. For example, this things like some of the Shanti Karma is not in Apastamba Sutra. So what do? Is we take from the nearest one, Bodhayana Sutra. So that is generally accepted. Anuktam anyato grahyam. What is not there, you take from the other one. So here, what motivates people to go to Srividya? So let us look at this Vaidika Sampradayam. For Karma Kanda, you have this Apastamba, Bodhayana, Ashvalayana Sutra. Everything is written down extremely in detail oriented way. There is no way to go left and right. Then for the Mokshobhaya, you have this Brahma Sutra. It tells you exactly how to interpret the Upanishad. And there are differences like Advaitam, Visishtadvaitam, but there is Brahma Sutram there. But if you look at Upasana Kanda of Veda, where are the Sutram? There is no Sutram for that. And I am not saying because I don't see them. I say that with the authority of Shankara Bhagavad-pada, he says, in one of the Adhikaranam, Atayeva etadrisha upasanani kalpasutrakarehi na kalpayanchakruhu. Kalpasutrakara has not codified these upasanas. So when Shankara Bhagavad-pada says this, Kalpasutrakara ignore the upasana, when you say Atayeva, this is Anityatva, it is not mandatory to do that. It is not mandatory to do that, so Kalpasutrakaras have ignored that. But you cannot read any Upanishad fully without touching. Probably Kathopanishad, you can say that. Every other Upanishad has, of the primary 10 Upanishad, has some kind of Upasana. And Dahara Upasana is very, very famous. Dahara Kasha Rupini. And there are many who have written that Dahara Vidya is Srividya. So that is another motivation for me to look at it from the Dahara Vidya and Srividya, the parallel. That itself can be a 3-day workshop. That is Dahara Vidya and Srividya can be a 3-day workshop with interested aspirants. So I cannot go too much into that. But there is one aspect I want to talk. So where is the Dahara Vidya codified? It is not there. But they say Srividya is Dahara Vidya. So where is the relation? That part is what I want to emphasize for the next 5-6 minutes. If you look at the relationship between the Dahara Vidya, what it says is, in a crux I will tell you, Esha Atma, Apagada Papma, Vijaro Vimukti, Vishoka, Vijagatsa, Apipasa, Satyakama, Satyasankalpa, there are 8 gunas. And Yavan Vayam Akasha, Tavan Esho Antarhridaya. Whatever is there in outside, it is there in your heart. And that Akasha Shariram Brahma, that your heart, the Akasha in the heart, that is what is Brahma. And there is a little bit of tricky point, naughty point there, is that Akasha is Brahma or Brahma is in Akasha, residing in Akasha. There is a big discussion there. And that is why I need, of the 3 days, 1 day I can just touch that point alone. And the Shivarkamani Deepika is one book that gives ultimate clarity. When I was reading anything else, I couldn't get that. But when I went to Shivarkamani Deepika, that gives a fantastic clarity on that aspect of it. I'm just, those who are interested, we can discuss that later. So this, you have this Akasha, and there is Brahma in that, or Akasha as Brahma, Brahma as Akasha. Let us keep that. Then you have this 8 gunas. And when you say Yavanvayam Akasha, the whole universe has to be encompassed in this Akasha. And that is what is mapped as your, starting from Bhupuram, your Sri Chakram is mapped. The whole universe is mapped into the Sri Yantra. And that you have mapped it, right? So now you have this universe to Sri Yantra mapping. And now you have to take it into your heart. And I need a tool for that. And I take Bhavana Upanishad for that. What Bhavana Upanishad does is, it transforms your body to Sri Yantra. That is what it does. Now from that is, if you go into the details of Bhavana Upanishad, it gives a very detailed procedure of each yantra to each element of our body. It can be physical element, it can be psychological element, both. And that transformation happens. And Bhaskaraya has given a very detailed Prayoga Vidhi. And what I see, this Nyasa and all is kind of, maybe he has extended Nyasa, or Nyasa is a distilled procedure or diluted procedure of this Prayoga Vidhi. It is one of these two. There is a lot of relation, but here in Nyasa you have to actually touch the portion with that particular mudra and realize it. And so you have this in Lagunyasa and Mahanyasam, this talk, we do this Raudrikaranam. The Sharira is a Raudrikaranam. We do this, touch each portion of the body and make it as a part of belonging to Rudra. Like that, when you do this Matruka Nyasa and all this Nyasa, you transform the body into certain aspect of the divine. So that is what Nyasa is. This Prayoga Vidhi goes into much more detail. You actually transform your body into this, the Sri Yantra. But it is not, the process is not complete, because when you look into Bhavana Upanishad, this divine, the Bindu, is taken to Sahasrara. Whereas for Dahara Kasha, the Dahara Vidya, it has to be in the heart. So that transformation has to happen. So you do this and take it over there. And there in Sampradaya, what we have is this Antaryaga. So this Antaryaga is the one which, after you do this Prayoga Vidhi, you have this, transform the body into that, you take everything into your heart. So when you do this Antaryaga, what you do is, you start from the heart, you visualize the divine in your heart, and the beautifully it says that, I cannot read everything now, but we can discuss it later. First, initially this very interesting problem I had, and it was resolved much, because I was too shy to ask this question to my guru. Say I sit and do meditation, and the rest I have to visualize, or I have to do the bhavana of Paradevata in my heart. Okay, I see the image and then I try to remember and do that. Now a silly question that came to, I thought it was very silly, and so for several years I was very shy to ask. I thought it was so obvious, others might not have asked, or others might know. So it took a few years of shyness to get rid of that. I was thinking, if I am sitting like this, is the mother facing this way or that way? Okay. So how does it matter? It matters because we have still not gotten rid of the body consciousness. So I need to know which way is mother sitting. So if mother is sitting facing like this, you see the picture of Hanuman when he opens his heart, Rama is facing us, right? Then where am I sitting? If she is in my heart facing you, then what is she doing for me? Okay, or if she is facing this way, then how do I mean? Am I visualizing her back? I don't know what. So I had this confusion for some time, but this Antaryaga gives the answer. In each of this, you visualize mother, and you have to have Jiva Purataha, standing. You do both. You don't visualize only the divine, you visualize Jiva also. And once you take Jiva from this body to your heart, even though you have the locus there, then it really doesn't matter. So you have mother and you have you in front of her. And that duality is what you slowly carry over from each place. And because of that, Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakaya Samanam Vriksham Parishasva Jate, you have this. You have one is Jiva, the other one is Ishvara. Tayoranyat Pippalam Swadu Atti. Okay, that is what we do. And we do upacharas to her. And Anasnanyanyo abhijakashiti, Sakshini, Sakshivajita, she is just seeing that. So it took a lot of time for my guru used to say, either you have to do 100 Bahya Puja to do this Antaryaga, either that, or you have to fully understand this Dahara Vidya. So I took the shortcut. I kept on reading about Dahara Vidya like I told you. Then I was able to, he was able to guide me into Antaryaga. So this is, and I could relate to most Upanishad phrases by this Dvasuparna and all, really made sense what they were trying to do there. Okay. I have one more point. There's two things I want to tell about. One of the powerful phrases in Bhavanopanishad is Jnanam Argyam Jneyam Havihi Jnata Hota. This Jnanam is Gatadi Jnanam, Argyam is the Puja Samagri, Jneyah, this Bahya Vishayam, that is Jneyah, that is Nevedyam, and Jnata is Hota. So the more and more we get into this, everything I see, everything I enjoy, everything I suffer, everything is offering to the mother, then they don't become enjoyment or suffering, they become this offering to the mother. And the more and more puja I do, I become more and more happy, because what did I do? I just do puja. I didn't suffer, I didn't enjoy something positive or negative, I just did puja, right? So there are several shlokas which one can quote. Shivananda Lahari, I am not talking Saundara Lahari, Shivananda Lahari explains a lot about this kind of concepts, and probably that is another thought which we could have. So then this Raga Swarupa Pashadya, up to all that it is coming in this Bhavana Upanishad, and Vikalpanam Atmani Vilapanam Homaha. So that is what it is. All these thoughts, everything has to be Atmani Vilapanam Homaha. You have to dissolve that. And there one interesting point I will tell, this mudra is Dashamudra Samaradhya is there, no? The Mudam Prati iti mudra, and there are other things. This is not the mudra in Panchakamara as far as I know. This is very different. The puja mudra, like we were talking about the dance kind of thing. That is Mudam Rati. And when you look into this, the meanings of mudra, I'll read only one, the rest I can discuss later. Sarva Sankshobhini Mudra. Okay. This is another point I used to have. Some of these yoginis name are Sarva Sankshobhini, Sarva Vashankari. I used to think, see, I don't want, as it is, I have enough problems. What is the point in this Sarva Vashankari? In one end, you are supposed to have this Vivekam Vairagyam, and now you want to go and do Vashikaram for everyone. I am inviting more problem, probably more of introvert or whatever it is. It was the Sarva Vashankari and all, I could not relate at all. But only when we go to Antaryaga, it is Sarva is a Sarvanama, and that is, it has to be defined based on the context. So where do you do this? When you sit and say that, okay, I am here, I am in this city, I am in this place, and so many people are around me, and now Sarva Vashankari, I want to attract all these people, then that makes sense. But the Upasana is done in the heart. So there, what is Sarva? All your Vasanas are Sarva, everything around that. So how do you attract your Vasanas? And Sarva Sankshobhini, how do you agitate your Vasanas so that only good Vasanas come out and the bad Vasanas are suppressed? So the Sarva in this, the name of the yoginis and mudras, if you take it as Vasana, then it immediately leads to Viveka and Vairagya, not this confusion like, do you want to go and attract all these people? Okay. So as it is, we have attracted a lot of people and that is giving trouble. Dvitiyadvai bhayam bhavati. So when I go and attract all the people, I am going to have more trouble. So the Sarva is the Vasanas. So Sarva Sanshobhini and Sarva Vidravini, preservation of the world, that is enjoyment by the five senses. So all these five senses have to be subdued into this Atmani Vilapanam Homaha. So one of this, when we talk about this Pancha Upacharaha, Sugandavat Padartha Anubhavena Pratyangmukataya pramatari vishranti gandha samarpanam. This gandhadi upachara sugandavat padartha anubhavena. See, anything that is with good smell, as we experience that, pratyangmukataya, that is, we forget the external object, as we have that enjoyment, pratyangmukataya, pramatari vishranti, the pramata jiva, they are going and resting there, that is gandha samarpanam. Like that, all this upacharas, all this puja, everything has to be taken inside, and slowly you dissolve this, and you keep continuing this probably 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, and then it expands and expands and expands. And over a period of time, you don't know when you are starting, when you are ending, and it becomes the second nature. And then that is what this Atma Vidya and Sri Vidya becomes the Atma Vidya. That is the sadhana aspect. 25 minutes, sir. I will stop now. So, any questions, we'll talk. There is a lot to discuss. We can have exchange our contacts. We can discuss even after we go home. And this is more like a thought-provoking, if at all. That be too presumptuous to say it's thought-provoking. Yes. 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 Because when that is why Srividya is a Bheda, Abheda, and Bheda Abheda. There is there is no compulsion that you have to go to the Abheda aspect only. Okay, there is one saying. This I forgot. This is in the Kalpataru. Ye mandanu kampante vashīkrite manasyesham. Okay, if anyone can remember, I'll tell that quotation. This, when you do the Sagunopasana, that Murti, the Saguna Daivam itself, will find out what is right for you, and at the appropriate stage, take it to the Nirgunam. This is from Advaitic standpoint of view. Not everyone has to agree to that. See, mother is going to give whatever you ask. If you keep on saying that I want you in front of me, I want you to do all of my bidding, definitely that's what she is going to do. She is not going to say, no, 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 you and I are same. I don't think that is going to happen. So definitely we have upasakas like that, and they are not at all concerned about this. And in some of the mandalis, what we say is upasana is main, but they also have to do this Vedanta Shravana. That is once a week or so. Some people say that. But there are mandalis who say, no, no, that is not needed at all. This is enough. Nama Parayana Pradya, Nandi Vidya, Nateshwari, that is enough. So she is going to take care. Which form is up to us and up to her. That is. Did I answer your question? Yeah, okay. Yes. No, no. Mm.
In the Vama Marga or in other margas, what we do, imagine all the senses objects like Sugandha, Durgandha, without a distinction we offer.
Mm.
But in case of Srividya, like a normal sadhana, why is the other senses which is not Sugandha to me not offered at all? Is it left or not left? Like all the Gandhadravyas are taken as in to merge with Devi or to be offered to Devi, or is it just a selective Sugandha that is being?
No, whatever gives you preeti. When you are a normal person, what gives you preeti? If you are talking about at the highest level of upasana, where all the distinguish, see what we define as Sugandha or Durgandha, it is very, very subjective. Taste is subjective. All these senses are very subjective. So when you say for an adept sadhaka who sees divine in every atom, every anu, there is no distinguish. So every gandham is sugandham you offer to the divine, right? But if you force me to do, who was not adept in that, if you force me to do, when you tell madhu, for me immediate translation is honey. For others it could be different. When you say, no, this is madhu, you have to drink this, no, I'll stop going that place. So it is to particular, that is why you, if you, here in Tamil Nadu, we have this Periya Purana, the story of 69 verse. And the beauty of the story is, there are 60 saints who attain Shiva, and no two person attain in the same way. The message I take from that is, if there are 1,000 of us, Divine Mother gives 1,000 different parts. I don't have to copy you, you don't have to copy me. So the Sugandha is what is Shobhanam to you, to the Upasaka. That's enough. Yeah, thank you.
All the participants, all the audience would agree with me that we were very privileged, very much fortunate to have this Devi Swarupa Upasaka with us, who has his Upasana is formed into himself. He has come here. So we have to offer our respect to him. I request Srinivas Garu to felicitate him.